Judge fined Elon Musk $10,000, 0 cents, for wearing a cross. But what seemed like a simple courtroom penalty sparked a nationwide battle over faith and freedom. With cameras rolling and the world watching, Elon stood up, not just for himself, but for millions. What he said next silenced the courtroom and changed everything. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The courtroom was hushed as Elon Musk stepped inside. He wore his usual black t-shirt beneath a tailored blazer, his demeanor calm, unreadable. But today, something different glinted softly at his chest. A small silver cross resting just above his shirt line. Most wouldn't have noticed it, but the judge did. Seated high on the bench, the judge squinted, then leaned forward. "Mr. Musk," he said sharply, "this courtroom has strict guidelines. Visible religious symbols are not permitted." The room went still. Elon looked up, unfazed. "Excuse me? You're in violation of our courtroom's neutrality policy," the judge continued, voice firm. "As such, I am issuing a $10,000 0-cent fine." A murmur rippled through the room. Some gasped. Others whispered in disbelief. Elon blinked slowly, his expression unreadable. A $10,000 0 cents fine meant little to a billionaire, but that wasn't what made him pause. He stood, adjusting the cross lightly with one hand. "So, you're fining me?" "For wearing this." His voice was calm, but beneath it was steel. "You're saying this," he gestured to the cross, "is against your rules?" The judge's gaze was unwavering. "This is not about religion. It's about maintaining the court's neutrality." Elon tilted his head slightly. "Isn't this court bound by the Constitution?" Elon stood motionless for a moment, then stepped forward. His voice, though even, rang with unmistakable intent. "Your Honor," he said, "are you aware that the First Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the free exercise of religion?" The judge shifted in his seat. "Mr. Musk, this courtroom operates under rules of neutrality. We must avoid endorsing any one faith." "Neutrality," Elon echoed. "Isn't punishing someone for wearing a cross the opposite of that? You're not remaining neutral. You're suppressing expression." A quiet gasp moved through the crowd. A few people began whispering. The tension in the room changed. This wasn't about a necklace anymore. It was about the rights every person in that room held. The judge leaned forward, flustered. "This court is not here to debate constitutional law. We enforce courtroom decorum." "But the Constitution is the supreme law," Elon replied. "And if your decorum violates it, then this isn't just your courtroom. It's a battleground." The judge opened his mouth, but Elon cut him off gently. "I'll pay the fine," he said, "but I won't let this go." He turned, facing the gallery, then looked back at the judge. "Then I'll see you in federal court." Elon sat alone in his office, the hum of machines around him silent compared to the weight inside his mind. The silver cross rested on the table beside him, glinting faintly in the morning light. It was small, simple, but suddenly it represented something enormous, something personal. He leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. The courtroom scene kept replaying in his head, not the fine, not the debate, but the way people looked at him, like this was the first time he'd stood for something beyond rockets and numbers. For years, people had questioned him. "Why don't you talk more about faith? Why not use your platform for something spiritual?" He never had an answer that satisfied anyone, not even himself. He had always believed in something greater, something mysterious, but articulating it in the public arena felt risky, complicated, too easily twisted. Until now. Clara knocked gently and entered without waiting. She saw the cross and the expression on his face. "This isn't just about court," is it?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "I've built machines that land on Mars. I've created neural links and satellite webs. But I've avoided the one question that actually matters." She sat across from him. "What question is that?" He finally met her gaze. "Whether I believe in something greater than me, and whether I'm willing to stand up for it." She nodded slowly. "This isn't about optics, Elon. It's not about public image. It's about who you are now." He picked up the cross and closed his hand around it. The metal was cool, solid. Not just a symbol, a choice. "This isn't about a cross," he said quietly. "It's about whether I still believe in something greater than me." Elon Musk sat back in the wooden courtroom chair, the silver cross still visible above his black shirt, catching the afternoon light like a quiet protest. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. The cameras weren't allowed inside today, but everyone knew the world was watching. The judge adjusted his robe and leaned forward. "Mr. Musk, as I stated previously, this courtroom has a long-standing rule prohibiting overt religious symbols. That includes crosses." Elon's voice was calm, and as I responded, "Your Honor, I'm not here to be overt. I'm here to be honest." The judge stiffened. "Honesty has nothing to do with dress code, but it has everything to do with freedom," Elon said. "And that's what this is really about." A hush fell over the room. The tension between them was not hostile, but it was undeniable, like two men standing at opposite edges of a deeper truth. "This courtroom is meant to be a neutral space," the judge replied firmly, "free from bias, influence, or symbolic pressure." Elon nodded slowly. "And neutrality, in theory, is noble. But neutrality enforced by erasing belief isn't neutrality at all. It's selective silence." The judge's lips tightened. "You think rules are an attack?" "I think when a rule tells someone they have to hide the very thing that gives them meaning, that's not just a rule, that's control," Elon said. "If I walked in here with a SpaceX pin, no one would blink, but wear a small cross, suddenly I'm a disruption." The judge stood straighter. "You're arguing that your expression of faith should override the established expectations of this courtroom?" "No," Elon said. "I'm arguing that I shouldn't have to choose between participating in justice and expressing my identity." The judge countered, "If we allow one, we must allow all. What if everyone wore their beliefs on their sleeves?" "Then maybe we'd see one another more clearly," Elon replied. The room was quiet again. Even the court officers at the back seemed to lean in. "I'm not asking for chaos," Elon continued. "I'm asking for consistency. You don't ban hairstyles that reflect heritage. You don't ban speech patterns or accents. But you'll ban a small cross. Why?" The judge didn't answer. "This isn't about religion overpowering law," Elon said, his voice more passionate now. "It's about law protecting the right to believe." The judge stared at him. "You're not a lawyer, Mr. Musk." "No," Elon said, "but I'm an American, and I've read the First Amendment." "You may have read it," the judge said, growing uncomfortable, "but that doesn't give you the right to redefine this courtroom." "I'm not redefining anything," Elon said, standing slowly. "I'm reminding us of what was already defined long ago." Clara, seated behind him, watched closely. She knew this wasn't just a legal confrontation. This was a turning point for Elon and for everyone watching beyond these walls. The judge shifted in his seat again. "The fine stands." Elon nodded. "Then I'll pay the fine." He reached into his jacket pocket and placed a check on the podium, face up. "But I won't stay silent." He looked at the judge directly. "Not for me. For everyone who's ever been told their faith doesn't belong." The judge said nothing. The courtroom sat still. Elon turned, walking back to his seat, the cross catching the light once more. And in that small symbol, visible and defiant, a battle had only just begun. The fine was paid, But Elon Musk wasn't finished. Within 48 hours, his legal team filed a federal case challenging the constitutionality of the courtroom's policy. It wasn't about $10,000. It was about something bigger, something deeper. The freedom to carry faith in public, without fear of being silenced. His attorneys, some of the best constitutional minds in the country, convened at Tesla headquarters. Stacks of legal precedent filled the table. The lead counsel began outlining strategy, referencing landmark Supreme Court rulings, religious liberty cases, and the boundaries of public decorum. But what surprised everyone was how involved Elon became. He didn't just listen, he questioned, he argued. And when the meeting paused for lunch, he stayed behind, pen in hand, scribbling notes across a yellow legal pad. His notes weren't rambling ideas, they were structured, clear, and shockingly precise. "This paragraph right here," he told the team, pointing to their drafted brief. "You're quoting the First Amendment, but you're missing the human cost. It's not just law, it's lived experience." The lawyers exchanged glances. "Mr. Musk," one of them said, "are you saying you want to rewrite part of the argument?" "I'm saying I already did," Elon replied, holding up 3 pages handwritten in black ink. "You don't win hearts with technicalities. You win them by reminding people why freedom matters in the first place." The room fell quiet. Late that night, Clara found him alone in the glass-walled conference room, cross still around his neck, typing revisions into a legal document. "You haven't left in 10 hours, she said, gently setting a cup of coffee beside him. He didn't look up right away. "I thought building rockets was hard." She smiled faintly, then sat across from him. "You're not trying to land a rocket right now. You're trying to shift a system built on centuries of tradition. That's what worries me," Elon said quietly. "This system, it doesn't break easily, and maybe I'm overestimating my place in it." Clara leaned forward. "You're not fighting this alone." He finally looked up at her, and for the first time since the case began, he looked unsure. "What if they twist it?" he said. "What if this gets politicized? What if it backfires and just makes things harder for people of faith?" Clara didn't respond right away. She let the weight of the moment settle before speaking. "Elon," she said, her voice calm but unwavering, "you're not just defending a cross. You're defending every quiet believer who's been told their faith doesn't belong." His eyes dropped to the desk. "You didn't ask for this fight," she continued, "but it found you anyway, and I think deep down, you know why." Elon nodded slowly, pressing his hand over the cross at his chest. "I've always said humanity needs a future worth fighting for," he said. "Maybe I forgot that faith is part of that future too." Outside, the city lights shimmered. Inside, the strategy continued. Briefs reworded, arguments sharpened. But beneath the legal tactics was something even more powerful. Conviction. This wasn't about winning for the sake of winning. It was about standing for something sacred. The morning of the federal hearing began in silence. Elon stood alone in his room, the tie in his hand forgotten. He wasn't thinking about the cameras or the crowd that would be waiting. He was thinking about something much smaller, something much older. He was thinking about the cross. It wasn't the silver one he wore now, but the tiny wooden one his great-aunt had given him when he was 9. She had whispered to him as she slipped it into his pocket, "Never be ashamed of this, no matter what the world says." But even then, he had known it wasn't that simple. He had grown up surrounded by intellect, science, and ambition. Faith was seen as an outdated artifact, a quiet superstition not worth defending. And so the cross stayed hidden, tucked behind textbooks, buried in drawers, worn only at night when no one could see. Now, decades later, he stood in a mirror, fastening the new one around his neck. This one wasn't hidden. It gleamed beneath the collar of his crisp white shirt, silent but firm. As he buttoned his jacket, he thought not of his reputation or his wealth, but of that little boy who used to wonder if believing made him weak. He arrived at the courthouse early. The hallway buzzed with journalists and supporters. His legal team moved efficiently, but Elon stayed quiet. When it came time to enter the courtroom, he paused just before the doors. Clara looked back at him. "You ready?" she asked. Elon nodded once. "Let's go." Inside, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, attorneys, students, everyday citizens. The air pulsed with anticipation. Elon took his seat, heart steady. This wasn't about winning. This was about finally saying what he'd kept quiet for too long. When his name was called, he stood and approached the witness stand. The courtroom fell still. The judge looked at him over her glasses. "Mr. Musk, you have the floor." Elon placed his hands on the rail and took a breath. "When I was a child," he began, "I wore a cross hidden under my shirt, not because I was told to hide it, but because I was afraid of what it would cost me to show it." He paused, his voice unwavering. "I spent my life solving problems, launching rockets, building companies. But somewhere along the way, I stopped asking the biggest question. What am I willing to stand for when no one else will?" The room remained silent. He continued, "This case isn't about a piece of jewelry. It's about a principle, the freedom to believe. And not in private, not just in books or whispered prayers, but in public, in courtrooms, in schools, on sidewalks, everywhere." He turned slightly toward the audience. "There are millions of people who wear their faith quietly, who think their voice doesn't matter, but silence creates space for suppression. And I've been silent long enough." A hush fell across the benches. The judge leaned forward slightly. "I'm not here today as the CEO of anything," Elon said. "I'm here as a man who believes that rights not exercised are rights that erode, and if I don't speak now, I may never get another chance." He stepped back. The courtroom remained frozen, holding its breath. Elon returned to his seat, the silver cross catching the light beneath his collar. In that moment, he wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a symbol. He was just a man who finally found the courage to be seen for what he truly believed. The courtroom sat still as Elon stood again, this time not called. He simply rose. The judge allowed it, sensing something deeper was about to unfold. "I want to be very clear," Elon began, voice steady. "This isn't about creating chaos. This isn't about defying order. I believe in the value of rules. I've built rockets where millimeters matter, where precision means life or death." He paused, scanning the room. "But the difference is, those rules are built on truth. And truth doesn't erase people to create peace. It includes them." He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, neutrality doesn't mean erasure. If we strip away every visible sign of belief to create so-called fairness, we're not being neutral. We're being hollow, empty. Faith is not noise. It's not disruption. It's identity." A murmur rippled through the back of the courtroom. Elon didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every word landed like weight. In this country, rights aren't protected by silence. They're protected by use, by being tested. The First Amendment was never meant to sit in a drawer. It was meant to be worn, spoken, lived. He moved a step closer to the bench. "This cross," he touched it lightly, "is not a symbol of rebellion. It's a symbol of peace. It's not there to intimidate or divide. It's there to remind me who I am and who I answer to beyond any boardroom or bench." The judge's eyes narrowed slightly, not in disagreement, but in thought. Elon pressed forward. "Your Honor, I respect this court, but I will not be told to hide the very thing that gave me the strength to sit here today. I'm not asking for permission. I'm demanding protection for every person of faith who walks through these doors. Quiet workers, everyday citizens, teenagers wearing crosses, men reading Qurans, women wearing Stars of David." He looked toward the gallery, his voice softening. Because if we start banning symbols of belief here, where justice is supposed to live, then where does it end? The room was silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing for a moment. The judge slowly leaned back in her chair, visibly moved. Her fingers drummed softly on the bench, not out of boredom, but deliberation. Elon stepped back, and in that moment, the man known for speaking to machines had spoken directly to the heart of a nation. I'm not asking for permission, I'm demanding protection for every person of faith. The courtroom sat in a suspended silence. All eyes turned to the bench as the judge cleared her throat and glanced down at the documents in front of her. A moment passed, heavy and reverent. After careful consideration, she began, her voice steady. This court finds that the fine levied against Mr. Musk for wearing a religious symbol violates the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. A wave of whispered gasps swept across the room. Elon didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the judge, his posture still, as if waiting for something deeper. The judge continued. Furthermore, this court rules that the dress code policy, which prohibits religious symbols in this courtroom, is hereby declared unconstitutional and shall be amended immediately to respect the religious freedoms protected by law. That was it. The words fell like a gavel onto history. The cameras flashed. Reporters rushed to get the statement out to the world. Elon had done it not just for himself, but for countless others whose beliefs had long been forced into silence behind courtroom walls. He stood slowly, not triumphant, but at peace. There was no smile, no raised hiss, just clarity. Clara approached quietly, her eyes filled with emotion. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. As they exited the courtroom, the flashing lights exploded outside. Microphones shoved toward him, questions fired like bullets. But Elon didn't stop. He walked right through, holding his head high. At the top of the courthouse steps, he paused. The silver cross around his neck gleamed in the sunlight. Clara caught up beside him, her breath shallow from the emotion of it all. She whispered, "You changed the law." Elon looked out over the crowd, then turned to her. "No," he said softly. "We protected something sacred." He started walking again, descending the steps slowly, methodically. Reporters followed, but he turned slightly toward Clara and said, just loud enough for her to hear, This was worth more than Mars." And in that quiet confession, the richest man in the world reminded the world that some victories aren't measured in dollars or rockets, but in the freedom to believe. He whispers to Clara, This was worth more than Mars." In the days following the ruling, the ripple effect began. Elon Musk's inbox overflowed, not with tech inquiries or financial reports, but with letters from people whose voices had long been silenced. A retired veteran wrote, "For years, I wore my cross under my shirt in court. You wore yours on the outside. Thank you." A young woman from Iowa said, "You gave me the courage to bring my Bible to school again." A pastor from Mississippi wrote, "You didn't just defend a necklace. You defended every believer who's ever been told to sit down and be quiet." Elon read each letter carefully, sometimes in the early hours of the morning when the world was still. They weren't just thank you notes. They were testaments. Proof that what happened in that courtroom had moved something deeper across the nation. And in those quiet moments, as he folded each letter and tucked it away in a drawer labeled Legacy, Elon understood this battle was never about a fine. It was about awakening a conversation far bigger than himself. What began with a simple cross became a call to every silent heart, a reminder that faith is never meant to be hidden. If this inspiring story stirred something in you, share it, because standing for faith doesn't begin in a courtroom. It begins when one person decides to say no. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, subscribe now. Help us shine a light on voices that need to be heard. The cross was never just metal. And this wasn't just about Elon Musk. This was about a movement, a moment, and the courage to carry it forward.